Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Wire on Saga 960 AM. In a couple of days, the United States is going to open up its border for the first time in like a year and a half, such that Canadians are going to be able to go by car across the border into the United States. Canada opened up the border to allow Americans to come into Canada back a couple of months ago. And so I thought we should do a show on this and find out what some of the rules are. And I chatted with Andy Semotiuk, who is a U.S. and Canadian immigration lawyer. He works with the Pace Law Firm here in Toronto. He's helped over 10,000 clients with various legal problems over his career. He writes an immigration column for Forbes magazine, where his articles have been read by over 1 million readers. He's here to talk about the COVID vaccination requirements going across the border northbound from the United States into Canada and southbound from Canada into the United States. Andy, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Brian.
Good to see you, sir. So what's going to happen in a couple of days? The U.S. is going to open up its border for Canadians, correct?
Right. So November 8th is a magic day, 12:01 Eastern Standard Time. The border opens, and if you're double vaccinated, you can come in. When you're flying in, you still need to do that COVID-free test within 72 hours. But if you're driving in, you don't even have to do that. You just show that you were double vaccinated.
Now, one of the controversies that was there originally was that you had to be vaccinated with vaccines approved by the United States. And a lot of people in Canada got the AstraZeneca vaccine, which isn't approved in the United States. What's the result of that controversy?
Well, I think that the United States is going to accept any vaccine that they've approved and any vaccine approved by the World Health Organization. And I believe AstraZeneca, I'll check on that, but I think AstraZeneca is one of the ones approved by the World Health Organization.
So I've got one AstraZeneca shot and one Moderna shot. So I can go to the United States as of November the 8th?
You should be able to, yeah.
And it's interesting because coming back into Canada, one of the controversies is you still have to get the test, the PCR test, to come back into Canada, even if you're coming across the border. Is that not correct?
It's crazy. Yes, that is true. And the big deal about that is they're very expensive. And it's sometimes hard to get a booking in time to get across the border. Like if you have a flight and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I need a PCR test. You can't do the simple one, the
rapid test.
Yeah, the rapid test. You have to do one of the more expensive and the viral tests. And so you have these situations where you got a flight to fly out and you can't get the vaccine in time to get on the flight. And you have to pay something like $200 to get the vaccine.
So I was actually, I'll tell you a story. I was in the US on Labor Day weekend. And I had a flight coming out. You've got to get it within 72 hours, but it takes 24 hours to get the result back. And a lot of the places that were providing the test weren't open on Sunday or Labor Day Monday. And so Saturday was going to be too early for me to take the test and be within the 72-hour window. So I had to take it, as early as possible on the Tuesday. And I had a flight out on the Wednesday. And I got a call on Wednesday morning that my test was inconclusive. I guess they said I didn't put the swab high enough up in my nose or something like this. So I had to come back and take the test again. So I had to quickly switch my flight for a day, which cost money. And I had to pay for the test. And because it wasn't their fault, it was my fault that I didn't apply the test right. I had to pay for it a second time. And then I was on the way to the airport the next day, and I still hadn't got my test results. Oh. And I was starting to, get a little bit anxious here. What was going to happen? But I was on the way. And I think I was just almost getting, not quite to the airport, but almost to the airport when I finally got my test results that I was okay. And,
unbelievable.
I have a similar, go through.
I have a similar story to tell. My wife was in the U.S. I was in the U.S. and so was my wife. I came back earlier, but my wife was coming back later. And she was in North Carolina trying to find a suitable test. And sure enough, she couldn't find one. And she was panicking. She phoned me and panicked, saying, I can't get the test. I can't find anyone who'll do the test. So what she had to do was, the people there were kind enough to create a circle of friends who phoned around all over the place to see if they could find a last minute testing site that would accept her. And sure enough, they found one. And so she was able to come back. I'm going to Europe shortly, going to be away for a little while. And one of my concerns is flying back into Canada. We've got the same kind of story where you have to have the 72-hour test. And it takes 48 hours to get the test, meaning if you do the test, it takes 48 hours to get the results. And I'm driving around between various spots in Europe, and I have to plan my trip in such a way that I'll have the 48 hours and the test somehow fitting into those 72 hours to get me on the plane.
We're chatting tonight with Andy Semotiuk. He's an immigration lawyer about vaccine requirements between Canada and the United States. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Andy in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Second 960. We're chatting with immigration lawyer from Pace Law Firm, Andy Semotiuk, who's an immigration expert, immigration lawyer. He's helped over 10,000 people with legal issues over the course of his career. That's quite the number, Andy, 10,000. How do you keep count of that?
Well, if you think of it this way, I've been practicing law for 40 years. Let's say I have 2 clients a day. 2 clients a day times 5 days a week, that's 10 times, 4 times a month. So that's 40 times 12. So that's, let's say 400 times 10, that's 4,000 times 4. Then you go up from there.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are benefited by your very able work. So thank you for all of the efforts that you've exerted on people's behalf. You said you're traveling around numerous different countries in Europe. Have you had to check out all the different vaccination requirements from country to country in Europe?
It's a checkerboard out there. It's quite complicated. Depends on where you're going. And I'll tell you, a big problem I have is I'm going into part of Europe where, right now it's okay, but they're predicting that it could go into a lockdown. And by the time I arrive, they could be in a lockdown. So it's kind of iffy, but I have to go now. It's actually a film project my daughter's doing, and I'm trying to help her out with it. So
a film project, fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think these vaccination policies for crossing the border or for travel are appropriate?
I do. I am I'm not going to probably win a popularity contest on behalf of all the listeners here, but I do believe in the vaccinations. I think it's very important for people to get vaccinated. The quicker, the better. And the thing that really turned the table or the tide for me was the World Health Organization declaring it a pandemic. I think that distinguishes this particular illness from, like polio or rubella or any of these other things that we're getting vaccinated for. The mere fact or the fact that it is regarded as a pandemic, a disease that is killing people worldwide, 5 million people are dead. I think that's a significant difference and one that merits special attention. And as look, just to briefly, I have to face this thing because clients are calling me today, just today. I had 3 clients calling me about how can I get across the border without vaccination? Like, can I make it before November 8th? One guy called me from Europe. He says, hey, listen, I'm in Europe. I'm in France. I got to get back to the United States by November 8th. I don't want to get vaccinated. And how do I do it? Can I fly to Canada and then drive in, still before November 8th? No, you can't. The rules right now are that you have to get this national interest exemption if you're in this Schengen area to fly into the United States. or you have to be out of Schengen and self-isolate for 14 days, and then you can go into the United States. But by then, you're going to have to be double vaccinated. So anyway, what was I on? I forgot what I was talking about. But anyway.
I just asked you if you believed in it, and you, you effectively said that you do. So effectively, to cross borders, we're going to need to be double vaccinated, whether it's going to the United States or coming back from the United States to Canada.
Yes. And it's
we
also
may need to, if we're coming back to Canada, be double vaccinated and get a negative test.
Right. Canada is very strict. It's along the line, almost as strict as Australia, which is completely locked down.
What about people that are immigrating, not just traveling? Same rules or even more stringent rules?
Same rules, double vaccination required. Yeah. And, you know, think of it this way. These people who phone and say, hey, look, I want to get an exemption or get a waiver, you know, what's required? So I start by telling them, what are the headwinds that we're facing to try and do that? What are the headwinds? Number one, World Health Organization has declared a pandemic. They say you need vaccination. Number two, the top medical community, all the people in the medical community in Canada and the United States and elsewhere, all saying you need vaccination. They're the people we run to if we get sick. Those same very people are saying, look, you need to get vaccinated. Number three, there's the issue that there are millions of people who are getting vaccinated without trouble. You know, more and more people are getting vaccinated. So you got to run against that. Number four, if you've ever been vaccinated for anything, that's kind of a sort of a breaking the dam, so to speak, in terms of objecting to it. There are those kinds of considerations, and there are others that, you know, make, and it's not just getting across the border. You're not going to be able to go to a restaurant, fly on an airplane, go on a bus. I mean, it's going to be pretty much universal vaccination.
I know you specialize in immigration law, but let me ask you just a general legal question, if you could.
Sure.
What do you think about vaccination passports or mandates, and this idea that to go into a restaurant, or even worse, to keep your job? You know, we've seen articles in the paper in the last couple of days about people being laid off without pay at the TTC, at Pearson Airport, in hospitals and educational institutions, and told that if they don't get the you know, that's laid off without pay, but if they don't get the vaccine in the next month, they're going to be let go. Is that legal, do you think?
Yes, I do think it's legal. I know we'll be in courts for many years, probably over it. 3 people that work with me are not vaccinated. And I've had discussions with them and, you know, tried to elicit their views on why and all that kind of thing. And in our case, at our law office, we don't have a you must get vaccinated policy, but we have a policy where if you're not vaccinated, you have to, you know, take the tests every so often per week to show you're not infected. But again, the key thing is it's a pandemic, man. It's not just an illness, it's a pandemic. And the threat to the lives of the people, you know, like we're trying to get over this thing. And the only way it seems that we can get over it, and this is year 2 on this thing, is to get enough people vaccinated so it's not a threat to our lives. You know, there's a killer out there. It's killing people. You go to a hospital. I'll tell you a personal story. I'll confess, both I and my wife had to have operations not long ago. And the big deal was waiting to see if we could have the operations because of the COVID crisis. Luckily for us, both of us got our operations, but it was 50-50. You know, if the IC units were, and the only reason we did was that Ontario was less, you know, shut down, and the ICUs were not as occupied as in other provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan and so on. So we were very, very lucky, and luckily both of us recovered. So we're good.
So the point being that, you know, obviously COVID is impacting not just people that get it, but the whole society, and your wife and yourself. I'll tell you my personal story. My mom had a pretty serious operation and she went in for it, and shows up at the hospital at 8 o'clock and goes through all the processes, and sometime around 11:30, after she was in the pre-op room, they come in and say, "We can't do you today." And she says, "What? I've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. I've gone through all this, all the pre-op procedures and stuff like this. And here I am in my gown lying on the table in the pre-op room." They say, "Yeah, we got enough room in the operating room, but we don't have enough room in the ICU when you come out, because there's too many COVID patients in the ICU. And I don't want to risk it, because if something goes wrong and we don't have enough room to take care of you, that's obviously not tenable situation. And so you're going to go home." And she says, "So I presume I come back tomorrow or next week?" And she says, "No, everything is scheduled in. You're going to have to be on the wait list for a cancellation." And thankfully she did get moved back in and successfully got it. But, and here she didn't have COVID. She had nothing to do with COVID. It was just, and the operating room had room.
Yeah.
The pre-op room had room.
The
ICU was filled.
It really hits home when it's someone in your family. You realize, wait a minute, what you normally expect in terms of access to hospitals and stuff is not there.
Yeah.
And woe be it to you if you're knocked off the list. The waiting times they can be deadly.
So I can understand a long-term healthcare facility mandating that you got to be vaccinated. And maybe I can understand the TTC and a bus driver that interacts with the public on a fairly regular basis. But a law firm, particularly if it's a lawyer or, maybe even an assistant that, only is going to interact with maybe one person all day long, can sit behind a closed door. Why does everyone in a law office have to be vaccinated?
You're posing difficult questions.
That's my job.
Well, I think maybe this is a cop-out from your point of view, but again, it's a pandemic. This is not just an illness. It's a pandemic. That's, to me, that I faced this in the beginning, and that was the answer to me. I faced this question before, and the answer to me was that it's a pandemic.
Okay, so let me turn it on its head then and ask you, if I came in to visit you, to ask you for some legal advice in your office, and your receptionist was not vaccinated, and unbeknownst to her and unbeknownst to me, she had the infection. She gave me the infection. I got sick and ended up in an ICU. Could I sue your law firm because I got the infection from your receptionist? And given all these rules that we have today in our society, I should have been able to expect that when I come to your law office, that people would have been double vaccinated.
Well, it would be a negligence question. The question is, did the law firm, was the law firm negligent in not requiring the receptionist to be vaccinated? And that depends on the public policy at the moment. At the moment, the public policy is not universal. If Ford came out and said everybody, every working office or every employer must ensure all the employers are vaccinated, and we didn't do that, then we would be most likely liable. But I don't think you could attach liability in a situation like what you're describing in a law firm or other.
Okay, what about ethically? Do you think you're responsible for your clients?
Yes, I do believe that. I believe we should do everything possible to keep everybody healthy. And that includes, at this moment, according to the medical community, what we should be doing is we should be vaccinating. That's what they say. When I get sick, I'm going to run to those people, the same people who are right now are saying, you have to be vaccinated. So either I accept their, medical knowledge and their position, or, what sense does it make if I'm going to run to them for help if I do get sick? Either I do accept their judgment or I don't. And if I do, then I should follow their prescription.
Okay, so let me ask you one more question then. So you've got a receptionist or an office clerk, and he or she doesn't want to get vaccinated, either because of it's a religious reason or a cultural reason or just a fear based on whatever they've read, they've heard, and there are a lot of people, not a majority, certainly not even a plurality, but there's a significant minority of people that have
I'm
this.
getting calls like that every day, Brian.
Okay,
I've got a lot of people who are asking about that.
but you want to have a vaccinated environment in your law firm. And so you've been demanding either a vaccine or a test on a regular basis. This person doesn't want to stick something up their nose every day or every second day. What are your obligations to those people? Can you lay them off without pay? Can you fire them for refusing to get a vaccination without cause? Or I guess with cause?
Well, I think the employer has a moral duty and also a legal duty to be certain that everybody in the office is that the environment is healthy, that nobody gets sick as a result of the environment in the office. So, for example, just like you can't say have pollutants in the office that might make people sick, the same thing would be true for an illness like this. It's a matter of measuring the situation in the circumstances of the particular office or wherever this is taking place. But the overall duty is there. There's no way around the duty. So
the bottom line, if we want to travel to the United States, we need to get a double vaccination. And if you want to travel from Canada,
this is what brings us to the area of waivers. There are some people who conceivably could get a waiver from the requirement of being vaccinated. And the strongest argument would be a religious waiver, or you have strong moral convictions against getting vaccinated. And I'll give you a possible example. One person phoned me and talked to me about the vaccinations and saying they were developed through scientific use of stem cells taken from fetuses. And he has a moral objection to that it's inappropriate and was not proper for the scientists that developed the vaccines to use stem cells in those circumstances. So an argument possibly could be made that this person feeling the moral violation of using these stem cells has the conviction that he should not morally be taking any of the vaccines.
So my understanding is that the RNA vaccines, Moderna or Pfizer, were developed because that's how you do RNA, whatever it is, RNA vaccines. But the AstraZeneca, the Johnson & Johnson aren't. So is a waiver for stem cells valid if there's other vaccines that are developed and used that weren't developed that way?
That's a good argument. In fact, I know someone who has argued with me and said, look, I can't take Pfizer or Moderna. I'm waiting for Johnson & Johnson, and it's not available in Ontario. And until it's available, I can't be vaccinated for exactly that reason. That this person said that they're monkeying around with the DNA, and that's not something I can accept. So I'm going to wait for Johnson & Johnson. That could be an exception.
So it actually doesn't monkey around with the DNA, but that's a whole different. I
don't know. That's the way that this person put it.
It doesn't impact the DNA of the individual at all.
Okay.
The other issue, I guess, is there is no, as far as I've been able to find, organized religion that actually objects to the vaccine. So someone might have a moral, opinion, but no organized religion has come out against it. And even the Mormons that a lot of people thought might be against it have come out very supportive of taking the vaccine.
Well, I do understand that there is one Christian religion, faith, that that the people of that faith object to the vaccine.
Which one is
Now,
that?
it's not the Catholics, it's not the Baptists, it's not the evangelicals, but there is I don't know if it's proper to call it a sect or but at least a group of
A denomination? What do you know? What
denomination.
the denomination is?
I don't know, and I'm not sure I'm at liberty to be able to disclose it to you because
Well, I've done a bunch of research and I haven't been able to find one. So if you find out what it is, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people thought that Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses would be against it, and they, because they've been against comparable things, but they haven't come out. And so that's interesting that you find that. Anyway, bottom line, your advice to people if they want to travel is to get double vaccinated.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to the United States by either air or by road, as of November 8th, you need to be double vaccinated.
Right. And if you're flying by air, you're going to still need the 72-hour COVID-free test as well.
To fly to the US or to fly back to Canada?
Fly to the US and fly to Canada.
I didn't know that. I thought you only did that to fly back to Canada.
No, both ways.
Okay. Well,
the only difference is in Canada, they need the PCR test, meaning the stronger one, the more costly one. You can go with the easier test down to the United States.
Okay. Andy Semotiuk, if people want to reach out to you to get some of your advice, how do they do that?
Pace Law Firm. Look up Pace Law Firm and phone that number. Ask for Andy.
Really appreciate your time on this topic. I think it's pretty topical because lots of people, they want to get to Florida or Hawaii or just down to, shop in the United States a little bit, particularly the Canadian dollar's up. So let's go.
I agree.
Thanks, Andy. And good luck on your trip through Europe. Hopefully you don't get caught with lack of vaccination somewhere.
I'll have stories to tell on the way back.
Well, that's our show for today, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Brian Crombie on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour every night, 6 o'clock on 960 AM, or you can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. You get all my podcasts and video casts on briancrombie.com. My videos are on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and my podcasts are on Audible Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Speakeasy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andy. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Take care.